Iran says the assault is revenge for the assassination of 3 leaders of Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. As Iran struck, another incident underway. 6 people reportedly shot in Tel Aviv in a suspected terror attack. It all happened hours after Israeli troops moved to target Hezbollah inside Lebanon. Iran insists it's ready for any retaliation. Israel says this attack will have consequences. Will this lead to all-out confrontation? That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Hello and welcome to The World and our live and continuous coverage of the events here in the Middle East. I'm Yalda Hakim, live from Beirut. Well, to say the last 2 weeks have been unprecedented is an understatement. Just 2 weeks ago, Israel launched a series of attacks on Hezbollah's top commanders. And of course, at the weekend, we saw Hezbollah's leader targeted and killed. And then we waited to see how Iran would respond. Well, that response came this evening. About 4 o'clock local time here, we heard reports that the United States had informed their counterparts in Israel that Iran was planning on launching a ballistic missile attack imminently as soon as this evening. And then about 3 hours ago, we heard the sirens over Tel Aviv, over Jerusalem. I just want to show you these images that were coming in live to us at the time. Well, I just want you to have a look at this map, which shows just how many siren alerts were issued across Israel. Let's just get that map up. I mean, this map shows the number of areas that were being targeted by Iran. Areas to the west of the city were also targeted, as well as towns and villages further south of the country. Let's just have another listen to those sirens, as well as the missiles that were launched. Quite an extraordinary scene as we saw these missiles raining down across Israel. Well, as you'd expect, Israel says the damage was minimal and that most of the missiles were intercepted, while Iran claims 80% of them hit their targets. And as missiles flew overhead, emergency services say gunmen opened fire in Tel Aviv with 6 people killed. You're looking at these images now of that incident that took place, a completely separate incident, obviously, from the one that we saw with Iran launching those missiles on Israel. So multiple things taking place in Israel this evening, forcing people, millions of people, to get deep into their bunkers, which is what the IDF had informed their citizens, residents of Israel, to do. Let's have a listen to the spokesperson of the IDF, Daniel Hagari, on what he had to say at the time.
Erev Tov.
Good evening. At this point, we do not detect any further threats from Iran in Israel's airspace. You can come out of the sheltered areas, but you must continue to comply with the instructions of the Home Front Command. I would like to ask you to continue to behave responsibly and be alert. During our defense, we had quite a few interceptions. There are a few hits in the center of Israel and in a few places in the southern region. We are still doing a situation estimate. We don't know of anyone who's been injured, and that is thanks to your behavior, to your responsible behavior. And we also ask you not to give information to the enemy and not to pass on any locations and documentations from places that were impacted. We are both on the defensive and on the offensive. We are going to protect the citizens of Israel. There will be implications to these launches, and we will retaliate whenever and wherever we choose to do so.
That was the IDF spokesperson, Rear Admiral Hagari, speaking soon after the sirens stopped and they issued an alert to citizens, residents across Israel that they were able to come out of their shelters but remain within the vicinity of their homes, but no need for them to stay in their shelters. Shortly after that, we received news from Iranian state TV claiming, the Revolutionary Guard there claiming that 80% of the missiles had hit their target. Now, as you heard there from Daniel Hagari, the mission had not been successful as far as Israel was concerned because there were no injuries. There were some small injuries, but no deaths. And of course, the United States came out and responded as well. A little earlier, about an hour ago, we heard from the U.S. National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. Let's just have a listen to what he had to say.
We are still working with the IDF and the authorities in Israel to assess the impact of the attack. But at this time, and I stress at this time, we do not know of any deaths in Israel. We are tracking the reported death of a Palestinian civilian in Jericho in the West Bank. We do not know of any damage to aircraft or strategic military assets in Israel. In short, based on what we know at this point, this attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. This was first and foremost the result of the professionalism of the IDF, but in no small part because of the skilled work of the U.S. military and meticulous joint planning in anticipation of the attack.
Well, you were listening there to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan responding to the Iranian missiles that rained down on Israel this evening. Just in the last few minutes, we've heard from US President Joe Biden, and he said that the US National Security team has been in constant contact with their Israeli counterparts, which is what Jake Sullivan confirmed. He's also said the US is actively supporting the defense of Israel. That attack by Iran has appeared to have been ineffective, although Jake Sullivan was saying that the situation is fluid. They are monitoring the situation and they are going to see what the next steps are. Well, let's go straight to our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle. And Ali, you were actually in Tel Aviv. We often see you in Jerusalem, but you were in Tel Aviv tonight following what was believed to be a terrorist attack in Tel Aviv. But then, of course, the warnings that were issued that we were going to see this attack from Iran, and suddenly you found yourself in the streets of Tel Aviv, and I heard and saw those ambulances going past you and the sirens blaring.
Yeah, and we'd only just arrived, actually, from Israel's northern border with Lebanon, where, of course, there is still an Israeli ground incursion going on into Lebanon. So, in and of itself, that demonstrates at least three major fronts that Israel has had to deal with today alone. It's been going into Lebanon to find Hezbollah positions. It was then the subject of a terror attack in Tel Aviv, well, in Jaffa, just on the edge of Tel Aviv, 6 people killed, 9 people wounded. And then really, an hour or so later, nothing more than that, the missiles started coming in. And we were just on the outskirts of Tel Aviv, and like many others, pulled to the side of the road, got out to see what was going on. People were taking shelter. There wasn't much warning. This had come somewhat out of the blue. In the past, in April, when Iran had attacked Israel, you felt that there was a lead up to it. And that time was different. I described the attack when I saw it coming in as being larger than in April. Now, I think in just pure numerical numbers, the IDF says somewhere around 200 missiles were fired at Israel tonight. Back in April, it was in excess of 300. But the difference this time was there was no warning. Senior officials around the Middle East have told me that back in April they'd been given a few days warning that it was going to happen, and so people could kind of get sorted. You've got that coalition of the Americans, the Brits, the French, and some of the Arab states as well in defense of Israel. Well, that wasn't really the case this time. The Americans did shoot some of the missiles down, but it was far more reactive rather than prepared. And back in April, Iran sent first drones, then cruise missiles, and then ballistic missiles. So it was staggered, and Israel could see it coming because the drones fly so much slower. Again, they could get prepared. None of that happened this time. The news first came out at about mid-afternoon that Iran was planning an imminent attack. The guidelines, the Home Command guidelines, changed across the country, and then only a couple of hours later, all of our phones started buzzing with a new warning system that the Israelis have got in place that goes over the cellular network, and seconds after that, the siren sounded, and then, it is no exaggeration to say that the skies above us were alight with missiles coming in and interceptor missiles heading up to try and collide with them.
Ali, thank you so much for bringing us up to date there. A dramatic night there in Israel with millions forced into bunkers. Thanks so much for bringing us up to date. Well, let's speak now to Ambassador Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the UN. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. It was another very difficult night for Israel. Of course, we saw a similar attack in April, but this felt like there was less notice, and we could see it in the night sky raining over Israel.
Indeed, Yalda, it was an unprecedented attack against Israel. And for years, the Iranians were playing the game, hiding behind their proxies. But now all masks are off. They send hundreds of ballistic missiles into civilian population. They are not hiding their intentions. And I can tell you one thing. We will retaliate. It will be painful. We will not sit idly by when a state is attacking, a terror state like Iran is attacking our civilians.
Ambassador, do you think, it's clear that you're going to retaliate. The United States says that there is going to be consequences. But in April, you retaliated as well. Are you saying that this one's going to be bigger?
Well, we cannot get accustomed to the situation where Iran is sending hundreds of ballistic missiles into our country. Even when you look at the history, at the Blitz of London, you haven't seen the number of missiles flying into a capital city or a state. So we have to take different measures. As we speak, the cabinet is discussing those issues, and I'm sure that it will be felt very soon. At the same time, I have called the Security Council to convene an emergency session here at the United Nations to condemn the aggression of Iran.
In terms of Iran launching this kind of attack, and the United States says it is an escalation, they are saying that they are doing it in response to the events of the last few weeks, which has been unprecedented. The killing of Hassan Nasrallah, a key proxy of Iran. Israel was aware that something like this would potentially come.
Well, that's a linkage that one can not understand. I cannot understand. We attacked a terrorist leader in Beirut, and all of a sudden Iran is feeling that the guardian of terrorists all around the world. And attacking a state with rockets and missiles, that's a line no country can cross. I think the leaders of Iran know exactly what they are doing. It's unfortunate for the people of Iran. I know that the majority of them are peaceful, but the regime is a hostile regime, and we see that today they crossed the line by attacking us directly and not through the proxies.
Ambassador, we received reports from the Israeli military this evening that they would continue launching powerful strikes across the Middle East. What does that mean? Because I've been here in Beirut, in Lebanon, for the last few weeks, and we've been seeing the bombardment take place. We've seen the impact on the civilians. The death toll is now well over 1,000. 1 million people have been displaced in this country. But when that statement says we are launching attacks across the Middle East, does that mean well beyond Lebanon tonight?
No, I think it's very clear. No terrorists can hide. And every terrorist should know that we will find them. We have the technology, we have the capabilities. They cannot hide. We will find them. And I think the attack showed that Iran actually panicked. They felt that they're losing control over parts of Lebanon, that Hezbollah is losing support in Lebanon. And I think that's one of the reasons they decided to take the hit and bring it back to their home country.
Ambassador, I'm just going to have to interrupt you because President Biden is currently speaking, so I'm going to go to him. But thank you so much for your time on the program. Let's go straight to President Biden, who is making a statement at the moment.
Okay. Before I began, I wanted to say a few words about Iran's missile attack on Israel today. At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. And this is testament to Israeli military capability and U.S. military. It's also a testament to intensive planning between the United States and Israel to anticipate and defend against the brazen attack we expected. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel. And I've spent the morning and part of the afternoon in the Situation Room and meeting with my whole national security team and consulting with the Israelis indirectly because, in terms of their impact on us. And the national security team has been, as I said, in constant contact with Israeli officials and their counterparts and is going to continue to be brought to me throughout the day. We're still out to share updates when we get them, and we will do that. And now I want to turn to what we're going to be talking about today, the damage done by this horrible hurricane. My top priority, and I mean this sincerely because we've been through a lot of these, my top priority is to ensure the communities devastated by this hurricane get the help and support they need as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible. As we watch the storm from the Gulf region form, I also directed FEMA to redeploy a substantial number of assets and resources to ensure we're ready to deal with what we expected and to support all the folks in need. We had over 1,000 federal personnel, including search and rescue teams, at the ready on the ground before it hit. Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama became the staging ground for responders throughout the entire region.
On Israel, and he said that the U.S. actively supported the defense of Israel following that attack by Iran, and he had earlier put out a statement saying that the attack appears to have been ineffective. The Israelis, as well as the Americans, are saying that as far as they're concerned, they don't believe that anyone has been killed, although there have been some minor injuries. They also said it is a fluid situation. Let's go straight to the UN in New York and speak to our Dominic Waghorn, who is monitoring all of the developments coming out of the United States. And Dom, for the last hour or so, we have been getting a lot of reports coming out from the State Department's given a press conference. Obviously, the president's been speaking. The Pentagon has issued a statement. The United States making it very clear tonight that they stand with Israel.
Yeah, and we're hearing those two words, aren't we? Defeated and ineffective. We've heard that from the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, from the State Department and the Pentagon. That's the script they're all reading from, and that's what the president said there as well. And the message really is that even though Iran fired hundreds of ballistic missiles at Israel, they haven't, it seemed, done much damage, and they've only killed possibly one person who, ironically and tragically for his family, is an Arab in Jericho. Well, that's certainly the reports that the Americans say they're investigating. I'm not sure if there's been an update to that since Jake Sullivan broke that news. But their message to the Israelis will be that we are foursquare behind you. We are supporting you. We were at your side when this attack happened. And the Pentagon said that at least 12 interceptor missiles were fired from a US naval destroyer as part of the shield that protected Israel. Israel, of course, using the American-supplied air defense systems that they have to such success in repelling this attack. But I think, obviously, also the Americans will be saying to them, they haven't done much damage, let's call it a day, can we move on? And that message of de-escalation will be reinforced, and it will be reinforced again, not just from America, but also from other countries. At the UN Security Council meeting, it's just been announced that they will hold another emergency meeting about the situation at 10 o'clock New York time tomorrow. I think, Yalda, it was also very interesting what Danny Danon said to you as well a little while ago, just now. And of course, the Americans have always said that self-defense is a fundamental right the Israelis have, and with Ukraine, it is up to them how they exercise. recognise that. And I think there will be pressure on the Israelis not to retaliate in force. But when you asked Danny Danon, will it be similar to what we saw in April when, in response to the first direct attack on Israel carried out by Iran in both countries' history, Israel responded in a fairly token way. He said we can't get into a situation where the Iranians are kind of routinely firing ballistic missiles in Israel. And in the wake of that retaliation in April, there was, as you remember, we were both there together, a real sort of backlash politically, not just from the right, but across the spectrum, saying it was a rather limp response and it will only embolden Iran to do the same. And I think those critics will say the same of the Netanyahu government. You can't let this happen twice now. It will have to be responded to in a way that is punitive. You'll have to follow through on your threat to carry out severe consequences if Iran attacks, as it has done, and there will be pressure on the Netanyahu government to respond with considerable force. And the question then, of course, is how much America supports it, and if, as has been mooted today in some well-connected reports from well-connected American journalists, well-connected with the Israelis follow through on the threat they have privately made, or they've made through back channels to Iran, that they will go after Iran's nuclear weapons or alleged nuclear weapons facilities. What does America do then? So there'll be pressure on Israel to show restraint, but I think it's hard to imagine the Israelis not striking back with some kind of force now in response to this second direct attack by Iran on Israel.
Indeed, that's what we continue to hear from both the Israeli side and the Americans. And President Biden has said he is talking to the Israelis, as is his national security team, about what the response should be next. Dom, thank you very much for joining us there from New York. Well, as we've been reporting, given the scale of these missiles, people were told to seek shelter. And of course, millions across Israel did. Well, let's speak now to Devere Cohen, who is a resident in Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Devere, for joining us here on the program. Just tell us a little bit about those moments when we heard those missiles being launched and they were being intercepted. It was unclear exactly what was happening. But of course, the IDF was issuing statements telling people to seek shelter, go into their bunkers and not come out until they informed them to do so.
Right. So thank you, Yalda, for having me. I really hope you guys had a nice evening, because we had our worst. We have a sweet 4-month-old baby girl. When the Iran attack started, we didn't think twice. We just took her and ran to find safety. As we were running, we heard siren from another terrorist attack in Jaffa, Tel Aviv. Unfortunately, they killed 6 of our sisters and brothers. Imagine holding your baby, as you see in the picture, trying to protect her, while danger surrounds you, and you don't know who is gonna come, bomb or terrorist. Just think about it. No parents should ever have to feel that. In just 1 year, Yalda, we've been through too much. In the middle of our most important holiday, Hamas commit the worst attack against us, and still our brothers and sisters there. We faced daily bombing from Hezbollah and huge-scale attacks from Iran that you talked about. Yet people still question our rights to defend ourselves. How many more attacks must we face before we can finally say enough? No one should ever have to ask for permission to protect their home and loved ones.
Devere, you talked there about your baby, your family, your concerns. Right. Are you worried that this is going to escalate into something wider?
That's a good question. And I'm not an IDF speak person. I really don't know what's going to be or what's going to happen. But I hear to say that you can look at the picture. That's not supposed to happen. It's crazy. And you don't know, you can see, you already know, there's a lot of places in Israel that face just right now with terrorists, with bombs, and with all kinds of attacks.
Devere Cohen, thank you very much. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. And I hope everything is going to be okay, and we'll be at peace. Good evening.
Devere Cohen, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. There's a resident there of Tel Aviv, and you get the sense of how anxious people are feeling in Israel. Here in Lebanon, people are extremely concerned about the situation escalating right across the region. And as we've been reporting, this is the second time this year that this shadow war between Israel and Iran has burst into the open. Let's get the very latest from our defense and security editor, Deborah Haynes. She's been charting the rivalry and assessing what this could all mean for the region.
Israel will have known this was coming after attacking Iran's allies and interests. Waves of Iranian missiles, many of them blasted out the sky by Israeli air defences. The government here says there will be consequences. Unclear yet how far they will go. The spiralling crisis was triggered on the 7th of October last year when Hamas in Gaza launched a deadly assault into Israel. A day later, Hezbollah started firing rockets into the north of the country. Over the year, there have also been attempts by Iranian-backed militants in Iraq to hit Israel, as well as threats from Syria, even from Houthi militants in Yemen, more than 1,000 miles away. With their defences painfully compromised, the Israeli military initially focused on Hamas in Gaza with a major land and air operation. It meant there was limited capacity to strike back against Hezbollah in Lebanon, even though some 60,000 Israeli civilians were forced to evacuate their homes in the north. Over time, Israel's readiness and ability to use force more widely has grown, with strikes into Syria and also against Houthi targets in Yemen. The most significant fight back started last month inside Lebanon, with a series of escalating attacks against Hezbollah, including the killing of its leader. The Israeli government appears to be trying to shift the balance of power in the region by targeting Iranian proxies in a huge challenge for Tehran. The regime seems to have badly miscalculated the risk that Israel is willing to take, even if it means triggering all-out war. These strikes by Iran an attempt to deter more Israeli attacks. But the momentum right now is with Israel, and there's no sign of it slowing down. Deborah Haynes, Sky News, Northern Israel.
Well, Iran earlier said that they launched this attack with the blessing of and on the orders of the supreme leader, and of course to avenge the killing of the leader of Hezbollah as well as the leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh. And of course this attack comes after Israel launched that ground offensive just yesterday in southern Lebanon. Well, Israeli defense forces had been directing people south of the Litani River to evacuate. They then extended that zone to the Awali River, around 40 miles from the border. The IDF has also imposed a closed military zone along 3 communities near its northern border. They also released footage showing strikes in southern Lebanon at these locations. Just have a look. Well, Sky News is unable to independently verify when this footage was actually filmed. Let's go straight now to our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, who is in southern Lebanon for us. Alex, I saw you leave this morning as things developed overnight, and we saw Israel plan to launch that incursion. Just tell us, it's been a dramatic night of Iran launching missiles on Israel, but of course, this ground operation by Israel also continues.
Yeah, and I don't think it's too much of a coincidence that on the same day that Israel announced it was doing this ground invasion, it's being seen very much as a ground invasion by people in Lebanon, including those Hezbollah supporters, but also ordinary Lebanese people and the Lebanese government. I don't think it's a coincidence that at the start of the day we heard about the Israeli troops moving inside Lebanon, and by the end of the day Iran was attacking Israel and linking it to its actions in or against Hezbollah and inside Lebanon. there's no doubt that Hezbollah has taken an absolute hit over the last 2 weeks, quite an extraordinary sequence of events. In just 2 weeks, they've had the booby trap, pager and radio explosions, a lot of their senior commanders hit, assassinations and attacks in the center of Beirut as well as in the suburbs of Beirut, and culminating in taking out their leader, a close friend of the Iranian leadership. So they have really been knocked back and caught in the crossfire. There have been tens of thousands of people, civilians killed, mothers, children killed, lots of injuries, and a huge displacement problem, the biggest in Lebanon's history. About 1 million people on the run looking for shelter. And we've been just hearing more explosions coming here in the south of Lebanon just in the last few minutes before we came to air. So civilians are in the crossfire, and there's no doubt that somehow this could possibly be connected. Have a look at what we found out today.
South Lebanon is being pounded by Israeli forces from the air. These pictures provided by the Israeli military show hit after hit after hit, apparently targeting Hezbollah tunnels and infrastructure, and some attacks are clearly in villages and communities. In other pictures filmed by independent media, what looks like white phosphorus is being used, a chemical substance banned in residential areas under international law and which the Lebanese government has repeatedly criticised. The southern city of Tyre has turned into a virtual ghost town, empty streets and shuttered shops, with many people either fleeing the city altogether or staying inside their homes. Only in part of the old town do we find some small groups, residents who refuse to be forced out of their homes and livelihoods. Like Elias Barber, whose business building small boats has been in the family for generations.
No matter what they do, we won't leave. This is my business. Everything we have is here, and we're not going to leave it.
People are scared, but won't budge. Leaving here would be like ripping my heart out of my body, this woman told me. In the southern village of Ain el-Delab, they buried 13 of their friends and relatives, the second day of mass funerals. Mothers and 2 children are among those they said goodbye to this time. The villagers are in shock after the worst tragedy to hit their community in decades. 45 of them were killed in the most deadly single Israeli strike in nearly a year.
They're still conducting mass funerals for those who were killed in the lead-up to this point, and now with the ground invasion, they're very much fearing that there's going to be a lot more of these in the days and weeks to come.
The community is devastated.
Like everyone just wants this to stop, to end. It's our land, it's our land, it's our home, it's our people. We just want to live in peace. That's what we want. That's it. They should not attack any kilometer of our land. It's ours.
Noor, too, can't believe what's happening. What have these innocent people done, she says. Why are they doing this to us? They're killing whole families. She goes on, this is like Gaza too, and the whole world is watching. A short distance away, another fresh Israeli attack hours earlier. This time a Fatah leader was on the Israeli kill list in Lebanon's largest Palestinian refugee camp. He survived, but 6 others didn't, including 3 children, according to the Lebanese state news agency. They're armed here and keen to show they're ready to fight, with Israel saying its special forces are carrying out operations inside the country that gave them sanctuary. The Israeli military has left a trail of devastation in the southern suburbs of the Lebanese capital, and to many these scenes are horribly reminiscent of those in Gaza, which the Hezbollah militant group has always insisted its attacks on Israel are linked to. But there are families mourning across Lebanon, many totally unconnected with the militant group. They're bereft, but also furious at what they see as Israel's violation of the country's sovereignty and the powerlessness of the international community to stop it.
Alex, I just wanted to pick up on some of the things that were raised in your report, including, Israel has said that these operations will be limited in scope and geography. They've reassured the United States that they will ensure that this is short, sharp, and fast. But there must be growing concern in southern Lebanon tonight that this could escalate. The Israelis have found themselves in this position before in 1982, and there must be concern that this could turn into a much bigger conflict.
I mean, they're a peak concern, really, because over the past few weeks and indeed months, many people, many Lebanese government ministers have learned that not an awful lot of what Israel says, Israel sticks to. They believe that certainly a number of government ministers have said that they thought they had a deal. They thought they had managed to convince Hezbollah to agree to a ceasefire just before the Israeli Prime Minister flew to New York. And they believed that Benjamin Netanyahu had also agreed to that ceasefire. And judging by the briefings from the US State Department at that time, around about the same time, they also believed it. And yet that set off a chain of events, including the assassination of the Hezbollah leader, which has led to this point as well. They have managed to rein in, the government ministers have managed to rein in Hezbollah up until now. And now there'll be a lot of diplomatic goings on behind the scenes to try and keep Iran and Israel reined in. But neither Iran or Israel appear to be ready to stop battling against each other. So the signs do not look good at all right now.
Alex, thank you so much for all of your reporting there. That was our Alex Crawford reporting from southern Lebanon. We've just got some breaking news that's come in the last few minutes. Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has said that Iran made a big mistake tonight and they will pay. So very much what we've been hearing from other Israeli officials as well, that there will be consequences as a result of the missiles that Iran launched on Israel this evening, believed to be almost 200 ballistic missiles that obviously Israel's defenses intercepted. He also has said what other Israeli officials, including the IDF, have said, that the Iranian missile attack on Israel failed. And he said the regime in Iran does not understand our determination to defend ourselves and our determination to retaliate against our enemies. Well, we just actually have Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the UN, speaking live at the moment. Let's just have a little listen into what he has to say.
And unfortunately, today the leadership of the Palestinian Authority are not capable of proving themselves as partner for peace. You know, they haven't condemned Hamas. President Abbas spoke in the General Assembly for half an hour, ignored the atrocities and Hamas completely. He never mentioned Hamas. So I think once there will be a genuine leader among the Palestinians who is serious and sincere about his intentions, he will find the Israelis sitting there willing to negotiate peace. Unfortunately, it is not the case today. Thank you very much.
Okay. You're listening there to Ambassador Danny Danon making a statement at the United Nations. Well, let's go to Israel now and speak to Zohar Palti, the former director of intelligence at Mossad. Thank you very much, Zohar, for joining us here on the program. You and I spoke when Iran launched missiles on Israel in April, and you at the time said everything is on the table. Tonight we're hearing from the Israeli Prime Minister, who has said that Iran has made a big mistake doing this. Is everything again now on the table?
The issue is not when Israel is said everything is on the table. The issue is right now that Iran almost declared war on the states of Israel. I mean, just above my hometown, there have been like 35 ballistic missiles for the range of almost 2,000 kilometers all over Tel Aviv area, very crowded area, populations, free country. Out of the blue, the Iranians decided to attack us. And it seems to me that there is a consequences for that. And the Iranians will have to figure out how to deal with this issue. And what Prime Minister Netanyahu just said, that if somebody is attacking us, it seems to me that the right thing is to anticipate that there will be a retaliation for that.
Would you say that the retaliation will be different to the one we saw in April?
First of all, I don't know. And secondly, the answer is yes, probably, because it was very, let's say, limited one. We hold our horses back in April. And since then, what we saw that for 11 months, we used to do almost nothing against the Lebanese, because we thought that the Lebanese eventually will bring about some kind of understanding with Hezbollah to cease the fire. And for 11 months, we were dealing with the atrocities of the Hamas in Gaza. And we need to evacuate between 70 to 80,000 people out of their home all over the Israeli-Lebanese border without any provocations. Till 2 weeks ago, we said enough is enough. And then we started to deal with Hezbollah. And Yalda, you covered in the last 11 days some serious things that we have done to Hezbollah in order to diminish their terrorist capabilities. And we will push forward in order to do it more and more. And right now, the Iranians, like always, are fighting together with Hezbollah and with Hamas and backing up. And there will be consequences for that.
Zohar, Hezbollah has more or less been decapitated. We've seen their leader killed as a result of the airstrikes at the weekend. Their communications devices have been completely destroyed because of the pager and the walkie-talkie attacks. Their top commanders from their special forces units have been killed. Now Israel has launched this ground offensive. I mean, is Israel now stretching itself? Because it has had a series of tactical successes. And I guess the question is, what is the strategy here going forward?
First of all, we didn't launch where it's a very limited ground force operation. The idea behind it is that we want to give a sense, and I'm emphasizing the word sense of security right now, to the people in the north of Israel, that we want them to go back to their houses. And instead of taking the hit in the Israeli side, we decided to take some opportunities and to go to the Lebanese side and to give them a sense of security in order that they will go back home. This is it. It's not a major ground operation.
But you know, in 1982, you know all too well that Israel began with a small, limited operation on the ground, and that escalated. Israel ended up here in Beirut. Are you not worried that, you know, we could see a repeat of that situation?
I think it's, in a way, it's an apple and oranges to compare 82 to right now. First of all, Israel is not the same Israel in 82, and our capabilities back then is not the capabilities that we have right now. And after October 7, you can compare it to nothing that we had in the past. Now, there is a golden opportunity right now. For the last 20 years, we hear from the Americans, our American friends that just have done amazing job, shoulder to shoulder with us to protect the state of Israel like 2 hours ago. And we are so grateful to the Biden administration and to the American fellows what they've done. Sorry to say that I wish to see the Brits much more involved side by side with Americans, but sadly I don't see it right now. But that's just a side remarks. What we like to see right now is after the American and the European invested so much in the Lebanese army, this is a golden opportunity to the Lebanese army to spread along the Israeli-Lebanese border, to take responsibility, although the word responsibility and accountability is not in the Lebanese dictionary, and I wish that they will be there over there, and they will take full control about the security situation, will kick Hezbollah north, meaning to the Beirut area, and then we have no desire to go back to Lebanon. We spent 18 years in Lebanon. We hate the guts of spending in Lebanon. We have nothing with territorial dispute or something like that with Lebanon. All we want is that our civilians and our citizens will live peacefully on the northern side of the border, and that's exactly what the IDF will do right now, to bring the sense of security to the people.
Zohar Palti, former director of intelligence at Mossad, thank you very much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you so much, Yalda.
Well, let's just recap some of the comments that we were getting earlier from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He said that Iran has made a huge mistake and will have to pay for it, which was also what we've heard in the last few minutes from Zohar Palti as well. Let's just go to Vice President Kamala Harris, who is currently speaking. Let's have a listen in.
President Trump called this potentially part of World War III.
Should they retaliate?
We seem to have caught the end of that briefing from Kamala Harris. But I can just tell you she reiterated what the president said. She said, I fully support President Biden's order to shoot down Iran's missiles. She also said, we are still assessing the impact, but initial indications are that Israel, with our assistance, was able to defeat this attack. And she said, I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself against Iran. Kamala Harris, a Democratic presidential candidate now, so no doubt Israel will be looking very closely at the statements she's made. President Biden, in the last few minutes, has reiterated his support for Israel and said that they stood shoulder to shoulder with Israel to support them in this attack. And we are now hearing that reiterated from the Vice President Kamala Harris, who's just spoken in the last few minutes. She said, I fully support President Biden's order to shoot down Iran's missile. And crucially, she said, I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself against Iran. Well, the UK's Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, had this to say in the past hour. Have a listen.
In the last few hours, the Iranian regime has launched over 200 ballistic missiles at civilian targets in Israel. It's too soon to assess the impact fully, but I utterly condemn this attempt by the Iranian regime to harm innocent Israelis, to escalate this incredibly dangerous situation and push the region ever closer to the brink. It cannot be tolerated. We stand with Israel and we recognise her right to self-defence in the face of this aggression. Iran must stop these attacks, together with its proxies like Hezbollah. Iran has menaced the Middle East for far too long. Chaos and destruction brought not just to Israel, but to the people they live amongst in Lebanon and beyond. Make no mistake, Britain stands full square against such violence. We support Israel's reasonable demand for the security of its people. I've spoken today to Prime Minister Netanyahu, the King of Jordan, President Macron, and Chancellor Scholz. In the last week, I've also spoken to other leaders, including Prime Minister McCarthy of Lebanon, President Abbas, the leader of the Palestinian Authority, to try to find the space for a political solution to the conflicts in Lebanon and Gaza. Because I am deeply concerned that the region is on the brink, and I'm deeply concerned about the risk of miscalculation. The situation in Lebanon is increasingly grave. I want to repeat my advice to British nationals who are still in Lebanon. You must leave now. You should register your presence with government officials on our website. We have a chartered flight, and we're doing everything we can to get people out. But the situation is extremely volatile. So if you have the means to leave, the time is now. Do not wait.
Sir Keir Starmer giving a statement there. Well, let's go straight to Downing Street and speak to our political correspondent, Liz Bates. And Liz, we heard from the Prime Minister a number of things, everything from condemning Iran, showing support and solidarity to Israel, talking about the grave situation here in Lebanon, and of course, asking Britons to leave immediately.
Yes, and of course, look, there is no bigger test for a new Prime Minister and a new government than what is happening tonight in the Middle East. And I think what really came across in that statement from the Prime Minister in Downing Street earlier was that every word was carefully considered, carefully chosen, as you would expect it to be. A lot of what he said was what we would have expected him to say: condemnation of Iran, reiterating support for Israel, saying again that it has the right to defend itself, and stark warnings as well about the risk of miscalculation, as he put it, in the grave consequences that could have. We were able to ask a couple of questions, so we did ask about British military capabilities and whether they would be used in the region. He didn't want to get into that, but also a bit more information on that phone call that he talked about with Benjamin Netanyahu, because the Prime Minister has called, as other world leaders have called, for a ceasefire. It seems that call is not being heard. So what could he say to him in person? Well, he said he warned him about the conflict spiralling out of control. He also talked about the hostages and the need to do everything to get them out. But look, the broad question for the Prime Minister tonight that will be talked about in Downing Street overnight, that will be talked about with international allies over the coming days: is there anything more that can be done or said to achieve that de-escalation that the world so desperately wants to see?
Liz, thanks so much for bringing us up to date there. Well, as we've been saying in the last few minutes, we've been hearing from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's just have a listen.
Citizens of Israel, first of all, I would like to extend my condolences to the families of those who were murdered in the atrocious terror attack in Jaffa, and wish for a speedy recovery of those who were wounded. Just like in the missile attack, there's a guided hand behind this terror attack as well, a murderous one coming from Tehran. This evening, Iran once again launched an attack on Israel with dozens of missiles, but the attack failed. It was thwarted thanks to Israel's air defense system, which is the most advanced in the world, and I would like to congratulate the IDF for this impressive achievement. It was also thwarted thanks to the responsibility and alertness displayed by you, citizens of Israel. I wish to also thank the U.S. for its support of our defensive effort. Iran made a major mistake this evening, and it will pay for it. The regime in Iran just doesn't understand our determination to defend ourselves and our determination to retaliate to our enemies. Sinwar and Def did not understand that. Nasrallah and Mohsen did not understand that. And I guess there are those who do not understand that in Tehran, but they will. We are going to adhere to the rule that we set for ourselves. Those who attack us, we attack them. And that's true wherever we fight, when we fight the axis of evil. It's true for Judea and Samaria, it's true for Gaza, for Lebanon, for Yemen, Syria, and it's also true for Iran. We are fighting the axis of evil everywhere, including our courageous soldiers who are now in action in Gaza and in Southern Lebanon. Today, more than ever, the forces of light in the world must unite and act together against the dark regime of Ayatollahs, which is the source of terror and evil in our region. They must stand with Israel. The choice has never been clearer between tyranny and freedom, between a blessing and a curse. And now, at the eve of the Jewish New Year, I say to you, citizens of Israel, Israel is on a momentum, and the axis of evil is regressing. We will do everything we can in order to continue this trend, to achieve all the goals of the war. First and foremost, to bring back all of our hostages and ensure our existence in the future. A safe and happy New Year to all of you.
That was Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu giving a statement following that attack launched by Iran on Israel this evening, saying the attack has failed. Well, joining me now is Khalil Helou, a former Lebanese army general. Thank you very much, General, for joining us here on the program. I mean, it is quite an extraordinary and unprecedented night here across the region, and there is a lot of concern about not just Iran's attack on Israel, but what is happening here in Lebanon.
Now, after this attack, the public of Hezbollah will feel emboldened. They have now a higher morale than it was a few days ago. And I think that the chain of command of Hezbollah is now rehabilitated. And I am expecting escalation in South Lebanon. Now, with the Israeli incursions occurring now, Hezbollah will be emboldened. And I think that Israel will go forward with the incursions and will follow the same tactics as in Gaza. I don't think that they have a lot of options, but I think that the best option they will use is the same as at Gaza, occupying a small area and then using it as a launching pad for special operations and then pulling out.
General, because of all the breaking news, we have about a minute left, but I wanted to ask about the role of the Lebanese army and what they can actually do in this moment.
The Lebanese army sticks to the international law, United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, the truce convention between Lebanon and Israel that has been signed in 1949, and officially the Lebanese government is not in war with Israel. The Lebanese government is asking for the implementation of this resolution. So the major role of the Lebanese army is to preserve itself in order to be an option to implement this resolution.
I'm sorry, we would like to have talked to you for much longer, but unfortunately the developing news coming in this evening. We're grateful for your time, General.
Thank you.
Well, as you can see, a dramatic situation here across the region and a lot of concern. I've spoken to families in Israel, families here in Lebanon about the anxiety they now have following Iran's attack on Israel. I'm just going to leave you with these images that we saw a few hours ago when Iran launched almost 200 missiles across the skies, raining down on Israel. We're told that that attack failed, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this evening has said there will be a strong response. We'll be following all the developments here from Beirut. But for me, good night for now.
Day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle. Why only in America? People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.